get that question of where do we find recorded sessions, which is really awesome because that tells us that you are liking these sessions and you want to go back and you want to see them another time or share them with somebody else, and you can definitely do so. So if you are a Facebook user, go onto our Facebook page for Puppy Raisers and Breeding Host. At the very top of that page is pinned a picture that looks just like the one on the right side of your screen, a German Shepherd looking at a computer screen. And on there, it has listed the link where you can go to our YouTube page. So unfortunately, this is a link only opportunity. You really do need to have that link in order to access the videos. And that's just out of respect for you guys. So we know that your faces are on here, your names are on here, and your voices are on here. And we'd like to keep our videos unlisted so that just anybody can't go and see you guys. So they are private for us only. So you will need that link. If for whatever reason you are not a Facebook user, go ahead and email us at puppy, DEPT as in department, at leaderdog.org, and we can make sure that we send out that link to you guys. All right, so now we're going to get started with the meat and potatoes today. So obviously, this is the prevention series. So all week we are talking about prevention, and you had a great session from VJ on Tuesday, and you have another great session with on Saturday with Laura coming up. And I should also mention that my cohorts are in today's session, so they are manning the chat room. If you have questions, you need some support, whatever you need, they are there. They're my backup. So make sure you say hi to VJ and Laura as well in the chat room. So let's start with styles of crates. Another question that we always get asked, what type of crate do we have a preference for, and what do we recommend for our puppy raisers? And some of this is really personal preference. It's up to you exactly what you use. Of course, we want something durable and sturdy, something that can be cleaned and sanitized relatively easy. So our tried and trues are the pictures on the right side of your screen, either the wire collapsible crate or the plastic airline crate. Either one of these are fine. So typically about the dimensions that we're looking for our dogs is about a 36-inch crate for our average Labrador male or female. Now, with one of our crosses, especially our males, with one of our some of our Goldens and some of our Shepherds, of course, they need a little bit more space. So rather than using the 36-inch crate, we're probably going to go up numbers into like the 42-inch crate. That's what you're looking for. Either one of these are great. Now, I can tell you that there are other crates out there that are very tempting. I see all the time online that there are decorative wooden crates that kind of look like a piece of furniture in your house. You can put a lampshade on them, and I've been tempted by myself as well. But my concern is durability and sturdiness and the ability to sanitize those. Chances are, if you have a dog that's just under a year of age, they're still learning how to be crated. I don't know if you guys really sacrifice one of those wooden types of crates just because they're pretty pricey, and I don't know how they can be sanitized as well. There are also the material, kind of nylon or cotton material type crates that collapse completely down, and they're really good for traveling, and perhaps you may use those in a very temporary situation, but I don't know that I would trust the durability of that with my puppy being left alone by itself. So some of those things I would really err caution in. And the two that really work for us, the tried and true, are the wire crate and the airline crate. Now, I can tell you what happens at Leader Dog if there is any sort of transportation that needs to be taken place. So if our dogs are riding with their guide dog mobility instructor from one place to another to go train, if they have to be transported to another facility for medical care or anything like that, then our cars, our vehicles are outfitted with the airline plastic style crate, and that's typically what we want them to be accustomed to. So if your dog has not experienced that yet, it's something worth trying. I will tell you, I'm a garage sailor. I'm a garbage, I go and digging through garbage, and it always seems like these style crates are readily available. Chances are, if you ask somebody, somebody has an old one in their basement. So I think it's really nice for that opportunity for your puppy to practice with, if they haven't been exposed to one of the styles before. So the next slide is getting started. How do we teach our puppies to go in the crate? That's the biggest question. And I like to teach this as the main hub. So the crate is where all good things happen, and I want them to be drawn to that place. It's kind of like their sanctuary. I will tell you guys that we're getting some feedback noise, so please just check yourself to see if your microphone is muted, just so that we're not getting that background noise there. So I like to make sure in my puppies' crates early on, I keep some of their toys that are appropriate for them to have right in the crate. I turn it into my feeding station. So if I'm going to do meal feeding and not feeding out of my treat bag, then I make sure that I put their dishes in there as well. I make sure it's a comfy place to sleep. And whether or not you decide that you're going to put blankets or bedding in there, that's something that we really need to discuss. Sometimes with the breeds that we have, they're easily getting hot, and they just feel more comfortable with the cool plastic underneath them. I think us as humans, who like to get cuddled and cozied in bed, we tend to like to put blankets and such down there, and we're not necessarily opposed to that. I do want to say that out loud, that we're not opposed to putting blankets, but of course we have to make sure, again, with durability, are these items going to get chewed? Are our dogs going to practice chewing blankets? Are they going to have the possibility of ingesting any pieces? And of course, if they get soiled or dirty, do you want to have to repeat doing laundry often? So those are just some things to think about whether you choose to put bedding down. There are different types of mats that are commercially available that you can put as a base, into some of the crates, and that's really up to you. Some of them are more sturdy and they are non-slip, they stay in place, and they are chew resistant, but nothing is 100%. I like to make the crate kind of like a safe place. It's my safe haven. It's like a bedroom. It's the place that I like to go to and I like to retreat to, and I feel really comfortable when I'm there. I want all things great to happen in the crate because I want them to want to go there. I think many years ago in training, crates were kind of this punishment type device, and now I'm going to flip that way of thinking, and I want it to be polar opposite. I want it to be something that's really, really enjoyed by the dogs. And if we start from the beginning by making it the main hub, then definitely we can change that thinking and make sure they enjoy this place right off the bat. Also, we're going to recommend that you teach your puppy how to happily go in. And we have a couple of different training techniques. If you've read the manual, you've definitely read about capturing, luring, and shaping. And we're going to talk about these techniques in just a little bit. So capturing is a naturally occurring behavior. So that's when we reward for things that happen on their own. For example, how we would capture our dog going into our crate. If we have either the crate door propped open or the crate door taken off, and the dog the puppy walks over, investigates, goes for a snack or to get one of the toys, and they walk into the crate, we can mark, and of course our marker word is a good clean yes, followed by a treat, and that's capturing. We just capture that moment of the dog walking into the crate completely on their own. It's not prompted by us whatsoever. Once they're in the crate, we mark with a good clean yes, and that is how we identify that we like that behavior, we want more of it, and then we're going to, of course, follow up with a treat right after that. The other thing is luring. And luring, you guys have probably heard about transport. If you're not, stay tuned for Saturday because Laura Fisher is going to be talking about transport. But to lure, we're going to take a treat, just something like a kibble or one of our Charlie bears. We pinch it in between our fingertips, and we act like we're a magnet, magnetized to the nose or mouth area of the dog. And I really want them to lick, nibble, and start to eat that treat as I pull it along and keep contact with them, because I can draw a line and have them follow my hand to the crate. Once they're inside of the crate, again, I'm going to mark and definitely release the treat from my hand. So that's how I would lure my dog to get in. Shaping is a little bit more sophisticated type of training. You can definitely do it, but in the beginning, you might find one of the other two methodologies a little bit more simplistic. So with shaping, that's little bits of approximations as the puppy makes their way to the crate that we reward. So for example, if they're about 3 feet from the crate, we mark with a good clean yes and reward them. And as they get 2 feet away, we do it again, and 1 feet away, and 6 inches, so on and so forth, little approximations until they finally make their way all the way into the crate. That's what we mark and reward along the way, and that is shaping. So any one of these techniques or a combination of all three can definitely be used as your training methodology to get your pups in the crates. This is not limited to baby puppies. If for whatever reason you started out with a baby puppy and never really started crating, I think that you can do your dog a great justice by starting crating now. And all of these techniques can definitely be used to teach an older puppy as well, a dog of any age. I always want to make sure that I do a balanced ratio when I'm doing training. And that is, I want to make sure some of the time that I ask my puppy to go in the crate, it's only for a brief minute. So they go in, they get a couple of treats that I put at the bottom of the crate for them, and then they have an opportunity to come right back out again. Sometimes they're going to go in, they're going to get their treat, and they're going to stay in there if I need to go take a shower, if I need to leave for work, or whatever the event is, if they can't be supervised. But I really want that ratio to be that a lot of times they just go in and get that treat and they come right back out again. And some other times they are asked to stay in there for a longer period of time. And the reason why we do that is because um, we I want our puppies to not feel like they're going to be duped or trapped into staying in the crate. Sometimes they just go in there and get a treat and they come right back out again, but sometimes they are asked to stay in there. If they're always put in there and the door is shut and locked right away behind them, then they're going to start to get this picture that I'm not so sure if I want to go in there because all of my fun stops once I'm in there. So make sure sometimes you just let them out immediately again. So I have a little quiz question for you guys, and you can throw your answers up in the chat room, and I will have Laura or VJ put a thumbs up next to your answer if you get it right. So if you have a 3-month-old puppy, what is the appropriate time that they can be left in their crate for? That's my quiz question. If you read the manual, you know the answer. So put that in the chat room, and they will put a thumbs up next to it if you got the right answer.
Where's the chat room?
Who? Yeah, where's the chat?
All right. So when to use the crate and how to ask our puppies to go into it.
Hello?
Again, if you guys can check, we're getting some background noise. If you wouldn't mind just
Yeah,
checking to see
doing
if your
good.
microphone is
How are
muted,
you?
that could help decrease some of that background noise for us.
Yeah.
So I like to add a cue or a name to that behavior once it becomes very reliable and predictable as well. So if my puppy walks in and seeks the crate out on their own, then I know that I'm starting to get to the point that I can start to name the behavior. We don't necessarily recommend one name or the other with leader dog. Go to your crate is absolutely fine. But I specifically give that when I know that there's a really good chance that I see my puppy walking in the direction of the crate and that they're going to probably plop down once they're in there. So if I see them, they're making a beeline, they're going into their crate, and I go, I know 100% they're going to go in there. As they're passing the threshold, then I'm going to make sure that I see the behavior happen. I say the cue, which could be go to your crate, and I mark and reward in that sequence. So I see the behavior, I say that cue that I want it to be, and then I mark with my good, clean yes, and I reward it after that. Of course, if you reward in the crate, that's even better because we want to X mark the spot where the behavior happened and we like it. The more that you do it, the better. Of course, practice makes perfect. So repeat this and play a really fun game. There is a trainer available out there. She's through Karen Pryor Academy, and her name is Lori, and her first name is spelled Laurey. Last name is Luck, and she has a fantastic video on YouTube about going to a crate. I was very tempted to put it in my presentation today. However, I know that sometimes our videos are not very cooperative. So I will just tell you, go check out her YouTube, and she has a wonderful crating video that I think everyone would like. And again, her name was Lori Luck. So when do you crate? Well, when you need a break or your puppy needs a break. We've all been there. You're not alone and feeling the frustration. I don't think any puppy raiser has had 100% success the entire time, and they never get frustrated with their puppy. I think we'd all be lying if that was the case. So if you're starting to feel frustrated, your puppy is getting really wound up, they're overly tired, they're getting really mouthy. I know we had a good question right as we started today about mouthiness. Then those are all appropriate times to go into the crate. Also, if direct supervision isn't available, if I'm not really able to keep my eyes on my puppy directly, or if I'm not able to keep my hands in the picture, then it's time for the crate, especially with the youngsters. There's nothing to say that we want or there is a rush to get our puppies to be comfortable outside of the crate and unsupervised for a long period of time. When they come back to Leader Dog, they are going to be spending times in areas of what we call a suite, which is a large kennel area. And so we do want them to be comfortable being confined. So you doing this at this period of time is only going to help them. At your departure, of course, if you're going to be gone for a few minutes or a few hours, whatever the case may be, definitely consider crating at that time. And again, remember to balance the ratio. Not every time you put them in there is going to be the time that you close the door and lock it. I want to make sure that sometimes they're out, sometimes they can go in there and have a good time, sometimes they come right back out of there as well. So is this a good tool for timeout? Should crates be used as a punishment? And I guess I would probably use the word timeout a little bit differently, me personally. Timeouts, I don't necessarily call them punishment. I think we all need breaks. So whether you go in the crate and you lock the door and get yourself away from the puppy if they're driving you crazy, or you put your puppy in, I think that's an appropriate timeout for everyone. I am very careful not to do it out of frustration or anger. When I bring my puppy to there, I want to remain a really happy tone of voice. I want to use a treat to encourage them to get in, or I want to make sure that I have a neutral voice when I'm cueing them to go into their crate. It's not out of frustration. We're not lifting them and putting them in there harshly or rough. It's very tempting, and we've all been there, and we've been very frustrated at times. But we really need to look at the timing of this type of punishment. And we know that there's not a benefit of an action happening. Let's say a puppy chews on a sock or they bite your hand, and by the time that you actually pick them up and get them to their crate, they don't know what they're going to be punished for. So it's important to keep in mind that trading for punishment is not something that we're going to recommend. Definitely, we're all going to need a timeout at some point or another, and that is an application for the crate, but not necessarily so that we teach the puppy a lesson so that they don't do a behavior again. Location, location, location. All right, so where do we put the crate? Where's the most ideal location? Well, this is also a personal preference thing. You may have multiple crates, especially if you find them at garage sales like I do. I really like to have a crate in my bedroom by my bed at night. And that's so I can hear my puppies if they're whimpering and they need to go out to eliminate, they need to get my attention in the middle of the night. If they're out in, let's say, the family room and I'm sleeping in the bedroom, I stand a chance of not being able to hear them. And I want them to be able to signal to me if they need to go and eliminate. So consider them putting it in your bedroom, a community room, or the family room. I really try to avoid making this an area that the puppies don't want to go into. Again, this is the hub. This is where they enjoy. So if we put the crate, let's say, in the basement, while everybody typically enjoys time in the kitchen and in the family room, and the puppies down there by themselves, it may be something that they become more hesitant to go to. So I want it to be enjoyable. If you can try to find a place or a corner in your house where you're able to put it. For transportation, you might consider putting a crate in your car for safety purposes. We do recommend that our puppies either ride on the front floorboard, on the passenger floorboard, or in a crate if you have a place to safely fashion that. And again, that's something that we want them to be really comfortable with when they're going to be transported as guide dogs that are working with our guide dog mobility instructors. They're going to be in a crate in a vehicle that's going to have motion. So we want them to be very comfortable with that sensation as well. Of course, if you are taking them to work with you, sometimes tethering is an opportunity, but if you need to go excuse yourself, go to a meeting, use the restroom, make sure that you have a safe place to confine your puppy as well. A couple weeks ago, if you joined us for one of our sessions, I did a session on enrichment. And there are a couple of things that we can, of course, carry over from that enrichment presentation. Visual, excuse me, my allergies are kind of driving me crazy. Visual enrichment talks about the surroundings and what we see through our eyes, and the same is appropriate for our dogs as well. So can we put the crate in an area where they can see out a window or out a door? Of course, we don't want them to be aroused. So if they're a place where they see a lot of people walking by, a lot of dogs walking by, and that gets them very anxious or stressed or frustrated, that may not be a good place for them to look out. But if they're looking perhaps in the backyard and they just see nature taking place, that may be a good place for them to look out. If we have artwork or murals or something in the back, even a mirror, that may be visually enriching for them. So consider putting that in their space. Look around when you put the crate up. What do you see? Just blank walls may not be very enriching for the dog. So consider what you put in that environment. Also, auditory enrichment, what we do with our ears. So are they in a place where they hear things happening that may be scary to them? Again, if they're in the basement, do they hear a furnace or do they hear water running? Things like that. If that's going to cause them stress or anxiety, you may want to look at a different spot. Also, you can consider playing something like Through a Dog's Ear or one of the other commercially available calming music sets. There are a ton on the market right now. I'm also very cautious. I will just say this. I hear a lot of people wanting to play the Weather Channel just on the TV. And that might be a little bit cautious just because if there's a thunderstorm that takes place, that can be scary to our dogs as well. So something to keep in mind on both types of enrichment.
Melissa, do you have a moment to answer 2 questions?
Sure.
So the first question is from Linda, and she's asking, what if my puppy doesn't go into the crate in our car?
Good. That's a good question, Linda. So, Linda, if you're able to unmic yourself, we can probably have a little bit of a dialogue back and forth. So, my question for you would be, does your puppy go into the crate comfortably when it's outside of your car? I don't know if you're able to answer that or not.
Yes, she is.
Okay. So if she's comfortable to go in the crate, then we have to kind of start to merge the two together. Sometimes puppies are not comfortable going in the crate in the car if it's on an unsteady surface. So our seats in our cars tend to be on a little bit of an angle. And if the dogs are sliding or slipping around, that may be one of the reasons that they're not comfortable. So I would look to see, can you put a board under it? Can you put a blanket or a towel under it to help with some of the stability and make it a little bit more comfortable? One of the other recommendations I would do is I would have her going into the crate in your car from driving. And I know this seems a little bit silly, but I actually want you to camp out in either your driveway or your garage for a little bit. Teach her how to go into her crate inside of your car, enjoy something really special like a filled Kong, and then she comes right back again. You guys go into the house without actually taking a trip. For some puppies, they start to become conditioned that there's always going to be movement associated with the crate. And I'd like to separate that out so that they get something special. It's not moving, they're not slipping or sliding. They get to go in. Hopefully that answers your question. And if I need to give more information, just let me know.
Okay.
VJ, did you say that we have another question?
Yeah, we have another question from Kathy, and she says that in the car, her puppy is fine, but she barks constantly as we drive somewhere. Also, she said when we are on the way home, she's quiet. The barking is nonstop.
So again, I would go back to, can we do something enriching for them? Can you play some music in them? What I really like, and I will tell you some of the music, like Through a Dog's Ear, people tell me it kind of puts them to sleep and gets a little, drowsy and groggy. So I may not recommend that you actually play it for yourself while you're driving, because I don't want you to get sleepy. But if you're able to put it on your music on your phone and put your phone near the crate so that she can hear that may be an opportunity for her to calm down a little bit. Also, I'd recommend that you make sure that the crate is still really enjoyable for her to go in while you're driving. Put some sort of really cool toys in there for her. That's the time that you break out your wonderful Kongs as well and put that in there. Try that. I always like to videotape too. Videotaping gives me a lot of information, and I like to see what's going on specifically, because you can't really see that when you're driving, and there may be something that's causing her to have that type of reaction when you're driving. Again, as I had recommended on the previous question, practice getting into the crate and settling without actually driving anywhere, in your driveway or in your garage. I know it seems a little silly, but I'd like to try to separate out each of the pieces, let the dog to experience them and feel comfortable and kind of build that comfort level without actually going on a departure. Good questions.
The last comment we have is that Linda said that your voice went out when you were talking about crates when pups return to leader dogs. So if you could just briefly restate that, and then that's our last item.
Sure. So as far as the crates at leader dog, if our guide dog mobility instructors are going to be transporting our puppies from one location to another. So they may be taking them out to downtown Detroit to work them, or they may be taking them just downtown Rochester. All of our vehicles are outfitted with the airline or plastic shell style crates. And so that is typically what they are going to be transported in. Also, if our dogs need to go to a veterinary specialist for some sort of workup, all of our vehicles are outfitted with those particular style crates. So that's something that you can just kind of know. It's not a requirement that you use that type of crate, but if you want kind of a leg up, an advantage, consider getting your puppy comfortable with them. You can actually see on my current slide that this is a picture into our village, and we call each individual kennel a suite for the dog, and that is where they're actually going to live and stay in. And that kind of brings us to our next section that we're going to talk about, what happens in leader dog at our villages and suites. and one of the games that we play, and one of the things that you can start right at home. We make sure that we reward our dogs preferentially for quiet mouth and still feet. And so you can see that the dogs are one's on their bed, one's just sitting on the ground, but their mouths are closed. Their feet are not jumping around. If we saw a dog that was really bouncing all over the place and barking, then we just simply ignore it and we walk past that. But we have volunteers and all of our guide dog mobility instructors and our team members that take care of the dogs. They're all trained to make sure that they reward our dogs for quiet mouth and still feet. So as they walk through the environment and they walk through the village and they see the dogs just sitting there laying on their bed nice and quiet, then they typically hand out either a piece of kibble or Charlie Bear or something related, so that they get reinforced for that behavior over and over again. It decreases the level of stress in our kennel for both our team members and for our dogs. And this is definitely something that you guys can do at home. If you have your crate stationed in an area where the rest of the family is, and our dog gets to go in there for breaks throughout the day, when you see them just laying there quietly, observing the world, looking around, again, quiet mouth and still feet, they're not bopping around, then that's the time to pay them with a couple of kibbles or a couple of treats and walk away and go about your day again. That will give you guys that advantage that we start training right when they come into their kennel, and it's something that you can do on your own at home. It's important to keep in mind, though, that there are going to be some situations that you encounter with your puppy that they are vocalizing, especially with the youngsters. If they are crying and they seem upset, then on some occasions, it is okay to let them out. We definitely don't want them to learn that the crate is a scary place or a place where they get trapped and they don't get to come back out until they're quiet again. So I try to balance the two worlds. Again, balance is going to be our key. If I have a puppy that's really fussy, that is really upset, they're stressing, they're biting at the bars, I don't want them to damage their feet. I don't want them to get a nail hooked. I don't want them to hurt themselves or become overly frustrated. So kind of find the balance in the guideline. If you think that your puppy's going to be hurt, if you think that your puppy's just becoming more stressed by vocalizing, it is okay, and I'm giving you permission to let them out. Of course, the more that we can teach them to self-soothe, calm down, and we let them out preferentially when they're quiet, that of course is ideal, but that may not happen every single time. So it's important to find that balance, just to keep a mental note of that. All right, guys, that ends it for our session today. Here are our upcoming sessions. Saturday, Laura is going to be talking about transport, and that's going to be ending our prevention series. Next, we're going to be talking about problem solving next week. Tuesday, I am up with jumping, and Laura is up on Thursday with biting. Of course, we'll have VJ on Saturday after that. If you have any other questions for today's session, I would love to answer them, but thank you for attending so much.
Melissa, we had a comment that I think would be beneficial to address. This was from Marcia. And Marcia said that using a wire crate in a car, if you have an accident, the dog's legs can go through the wires and possibly break. Before that, Kim has said, is an enclosed open crate better to get used to when traveling? And I'm going to give that to you because I answered that I think both types of crate are appropriate. It's just up to you what fits your lifestyle. But I think Marcia did bring up something that we should address.
Definitely. Both great questions, guys. So it is a matter of personal preference. There are safety possibilities and guidelines associated with each style crate. And I don't know, when we get on the subject of traveling with dogs in cars, if there really is the perfect tool out there. I know probably a month ago, I think there was a question on Facebook about if there was a certain type of harness that was really good for transporting pups in a car, or a certain type of tethering device. And I don't know, just as a whole, that we have stumbled upon this particular perfect way to transport our pups. So while we're not going to tell you exactly what to use, I think the point that a dog's leg or their paw can slip through the bars in the case of an accident, I think that is definitely a possibility. But I would say we'll leave that up to personal preference on whatever you feel most comfortable with. Good questions, guys.
I'm with Melissa. A lot of you know that I travel an hour back and forth to work, and I've really found both. When they're little, I tend to use a more enclosed crate. As they get older, the wire crate just happens to fit in my vehicle a little bit better because of how the distance that I travel. And hopefully that no one ever in this group ever gets into an accident. We certainly don't want that, but there's a variety of things that can happen. And so I know that that's a personal preference for me, but I also know that having both and having used both, that it prepares my puppy for returning for training. So that's another thing to think about.
There's another question by Jeff and a couple of comments concerning the collar, whether
Okay.
you should take it off when you put your puppy in the crate, and also do you remove it while in the crate to avoid any issues with it getting caught in the wire?
Yes. So there definitely have been incidents where puppies either get their tags or part of the collar hooked onto a crate, and it can cause the potential for a choking hazard or to asphyxiate. And so, of course, you have to be careful. The caveat, and I think this goes back to how we have our dogs ride in the car and what is safest. We have to also really, really be on top of remembering to put their collar and tags back on. So if you guys think back to when you first picked up your puppy and you go through the checklist, one of the things that we have you sign and initial is that you always keep your puppy's buckle collar on and their tags, and we always want them to be identified. So I'm just going to kind of make up a story. So if I come home and my puppy is vocalizing and they're wiggling and I know they really have to go outside and I had already taken off their collar and tags, and I go, okay, it's fine. I'm just going to let them into the backyard. I let them into my backyard and they don't have their collar and tags on, and my fence also just happened to blow open. Again, our puppy is exposed unsafely without their collars and tags on. So you have to decide what is going to be your comfort level. If you're 100% on top of it and you can remember to put your collar and tags back on, it's something that you consider, but we always want our puppies to be identified. So it's going to be a point of a matter of preference as well. Good question. I just put up the slide. I saw in the chat room somebody had a question about when our next sessions are. So hopefully that got your answers. Are there any other questions, BJ?
I think just some comments. Karen wanted to clarify that she said, I meant fit her crate in my back seat. But David and Grant wanted to let us know that they're getting their new puppy on May 22nd.
Oh, hooray. Welcome
So
to
they're
the
going to have
family.
a lot of new questions for us.
So continue to come to these sessions, guys. I hope that you find the sessions really informative. feel free to keep on reaching out. What I have to say, and I've said it before, we have a great community, and I love the fact that all of our puppy raisers and our puppy counselors help each other. So you hopefully will have lots of resources to lean on. You know where to come if you have any questions or need some support, because we have a wonderful community around us.
Do you have time for one question, Melissa?
Of course.
Okay, Linda's got a question about a 7-month puppy who still has accidents in her crate at home when crated for under 2 hours. Suggestions.
So Linda, if you can possibly take yourself off mute, then we can discuss more. My first question would be, has your puppy been to the vet for this particular issue?
No, she has not.
Yeah, so definitely by the age of 7 months, our puppy should have enough bladder strength where she should be able to hold it beyond 2 hours for sure at that age. So we would want her to have a really good physical exam by your veterinarian. They may want to analyze a urine sample or just look at her anatomy just to make sure that everything is normal. If they rule out medical and they see that everything is normal, then come back and let us know. You can always email us at the puppy development email address, and we can help you from there. Talk to your puppy counselor as well, and they can help address your question. But that would be the first thing that pops in my mind, is that we really need to make sure that she is physically healthy.
Okay, thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you on Saturday. Take care, guys.
Hey, Melissa,
Yes.
this is Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
I have still not been able to figure out how to type into the chat room.
So, Debbie, are you using your phone, or are you using a computer?
I'm using my phone.
You're using your phone?
Correct.
Do you see the chats going on?
Yes, I can see the chat and I can reply to somebody else, but I don't know how to get it so I can type a question.
Good girl.
Huh. That
Look
is
at the
a
bottom.
tricky
There's
one.
a little bar that you
I
can
get
type
just
in.
about every button on my phone.
So you don't see
Easy,
a little
Danielle.
line that says type a new message?
Yeah.
No,
Up on your pad.
So do you see an
girl.
option to reply to people right now?
no, all I'm seeing right now is your picture.
Back up.
Okay,
Yeah.
so wiggle
Yeah.
your feet, wiggle your finger around on the screen and tell me what you see.
Nothing except your picture.
Do you see a rectangular bar
At the
that
top.
has the video camera and the microphone?
Okay, I can go to the chat room.
Yes,
a minute.
Susan, yes.
I'm in the chat room
Okay.
and I can see new messages. I can see who left. But I don't know how to type in it.
At the very bottom of the screen, do you see where it says type a new message?
No, I do not. All I have at the bottom, it says administrator has disabled chat for one or more users.
Huh.
Interesting.
I'm just trying to see if there's anything on my end that I can do to change what you're.
Does it happen to be an Apple phone?
No, it's a Samsung Gallery S10.
Because I was not able to chat on my phone either.
Debbie, I'm just kind of checking my screen to see if I can change your settings at all.
Okay. Because I've hit chat, I've hit details, I've hit more, and I've hit the three little buttons on the